Morning, Your Excellency Ambassador, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paweł Siwecki. I'm the CEO of the British Polish Chamber of Commerce. I am delighted to welcome you to the third Female Leadership Forum. We've started online. We moved thanks to the host, the premises of Standard Chartered last year. And now I think we're going to continue thanks to our wonderful host, Ania Urbańska, the CEO of Standard Chartered. And of course, I'd like to extend my gratitude to Olga Grygier, who is Sidon's, who is our business angel and mastermind behind the agenda of the forum each year. Olga will introduce the panelists, but we're going to hand over the voice to Jacek Wasilewski, who will join us online from the university. Ula, do we have Jacek?
Yes, we have Jacek online, yes. We can start.
Yes, I am online. Yes, hello, my name is Jacek Wasilewski. Welcome all participants of third leadership forum. And I am a lecturer at Warsaw University and very excited to tell you, in nutshell, of course, about some of culture narratives, of course, about female leadership. And this is a part of a bigger research about changing of women's stories and contemporary stories about women. So I think that we can start, and I prepared for you some short presentation because I want to show you some pictures, of course. Okay, is it seen? Yes. So we can start about one of the most popular conflicts in contemporary narratives about women. Women in today's popular culture rarely have conflict over a man or conflict with another woman. Most often, it's a conflict with the world in which they have to find their place. So here we can see on the left a scene from a Pepsi commercial. I hope it's known to you, where women unite to oppose power. It's Julio Iglesias, probably. And on the right, it's a screenshot from a music video by Katy Perry, in which she establishes her own rules when she begins to rule. So we can see here some films about conquering the world, and in films showing the conquest of the world, a woman has to fight for her position. As in any narrative, we have several elements here at the bottom. So it is such elements like the point 1, in a certain situation, point 2, our heroine, point 3, on the way to her goal, has to deal with obstacles, and of course she acts with her own special method of action. And the key point is the fourth point. This is about she has to overcome the fear of the unknown or people's negative opinions. So this lack of faith or disregard is an important theme of many stories. Or of course, like in the Cold War, it's a picture on the left. Sometimes women have to overcome being treated as a trophy. So in these stories, what is paid attention to? Okay, so we can see here the character of the conqueror. Of course, it's a very famous heroine. It's also a toy because it's heroine available for young girls, as we see in the middle picture. And now look at the inscription in the magenta color. The balance of power and the enthusiasm of the crowds are very important in contemporary vision of female leadership. But this journey to leadership starts from ordinary women. What is the difference between male and female journey? Okay, so we can see a graph in a moment. Yes. So the journey of a woman after which she becomes a leader or a significant figure differs from the journey of the man. The first act, okay, it's the first act. The first act is questioning the rules and authorities. The second act is defending her path. Okay? And the third act, the most important, it is not only gaining power, but it's changing the rule. And I want to show you the picture of some politicians. On the left is Sana, the Finnish Prime Minister. I think she's very known for you all. At one point, in the second act of defending herself, she felt tired and she resigned. In this comparison, we see the paradox of roles. Male leaders are allowed more, and they do not succumb to criticism. Even as we see this quote from the Washington Post on the right down, on the bottom of the slide, he was defended after criticism of his behavior. Of course, Italians maybe are allowed more, but here we have a classic example of this narrative that on the way to power, you have to defend yourself in order to finally remain in power on your own terms. And you can see here the same paradox of double standard, and it applies to relationships with younger partners. A woman is treated as a leader, but also as an ordinary woman, and this leads to a paradox. Generally, they are allowed, but they are not allowed. Okay, so it's really strange. You're in power, but you shouldn't know your place in line. And however, we can see attempts to break this pattern in pop culture stories. These are moments. These are moments when a mother embarks on a mission, and for this purpose, she has to leave her family. Like the heroine we see on the movie poster. This is the poster from the film Proxima. Such a decision today is shown in the context of motivation. So the role of the mother is not the most important anymore, but it could be another priorities in her life. And of course, the mother is also shown in different way. When woman is in the role of mother, often it is the strength of the mother and her determination that lead to success of a child. As we can see here in the movie Big Mike, or we can see the screenshots on the right. These are Nike commercials intended for the Middle East. So the mother trainer starts to be popular figure in contemporary stories about mothers. So we are in the part of stories about the leader, and now we learn the role of the leader. And here are 3 famous films from recent years with different leaders. Key in the role of a leader is the combination of material values with moral value. What's more, with the leader, the whole group feels that they can also be wonderful. Okay, so I think it's very important in these stories about female leadership. There is often friendship among the leader and the team. So what are the important changes in present friendships since 90s? I see that we can see 2 of them. First is that women support each other instead of competing, and the second point is that friends are more important than loved one. And we have to say something when we talk about friendships. We have to say something about the role of female bonding in fight for the women place in the world. And this is about sisterhood. Yes, about sisterhood. We remember that the balance of power and the enthusiasm of the crowd were very important in the story of the world conqueror. Today, we know that supporters are inseparable here. They play an increasingly important role in stories about women's leadership, I think. And they are important and should be appreciated, of course. And we cannot forget about all this crowd that supports female leaders. And the last role I want to present you, it is the entrepreneur, and we remember the story of female journey, and the last act of the journey was that woman goes out into the world on her own terms. And in films that show a businesswoman, the key element of the heroine is acting on her own terms and being independent, as you can see about and as you can see in the point 2. Okay, our heroine, she wants to do things her way. So I think that the visions of femininity. I want to tell you something about the research from 2020 that was done for my company, and we asked women from different generations in Poland about what a woman should be, and of course 2 terms were very popular. That should be caring and sensitive, but however, it's the important generational change here, because two other terms very popular in Generation Z were independent and brave. Okay, so I think that is really a big change. That many people from Generation Z started to think that independent and brave, it's a key element of being a woman. And I think it's all that I presented for you about some pop culture narratives about women, and thank you for your attention, and I think that it could be a good point to start a discussion.
It certainly can, Jacek. Thank you so much for that introduction. You've certainly left us with a lot of topics to address. I think the first thing to say that as we are here, we're very much in that theme of women supporting each other. Having said that, I'm really grateful to see so many men, so many gentlemen supporting us. So thank you very much to all of you here. I have to start by apologizing on behalf of the other Olga Kozierowska, who unfortunately isn't well, and therefore she couldn't join us. But we do have a fantastic panel here, and I'm going to move into to introduce the panelists in a moment. But let me just remind us all that this is the 3rd Female Leadership Forum, and we're here to talk about leading in complex times. So lessons learned from female leaders. Do I need a microphone? Can you hear me? Or is it really?
That's internal.
I need this, yeah?
Depending on the audience.
Would you? I don't think it's necessary, so I'll probably put it away. But if for some reason you cannot hear us, you can't hear. Okay, right. No problem. So let me use the microphone. So, leading in complex times, lessons learned from female leaders, our 3rd Female Leadership Forum. So let me start by introducing our distinguished panelists. To my right, Anna Klunes, the British ambassador to Poland. It's fantastic to have you with us again, Anna. To Anna's
I love this session. I learned so much.
Well, we've already started.
Yeah, exactly.
That was fascinating. To Anna's right, Tina Sobocinska. Tina, who is a founder and strategic advisor of HR for Future. And Beata Osiecka, who's the CEO of Kinarps Poland. To my left, Agnieszka Gajewska, partner at PwC and head of government and public services global practice for PwC. And Ania Urbańska, CEO of Standard Chartered Bank here in Poland. And thank you again, Ania, for hosting us. Again, this is a fantastic venue for this. I'm not Rodriguez Siddons. I'm a business advisor and mentor, and for many, many years I was leading the PwC firm in Central and Eastern Europe. And it is my great pleasure, like for Anna, this is my favorite thing in the year, so please invite me again. Right, so I have the pleasure of moderating the panel, and I suppose I should start by referring to this word, complex times. I think I don't need to convince anyone that we do live in very strange and challenging times. If we look around, we see some geopolitical uncertainty. For many, many years in Europe and across the world, we had a very peaceful time. We saw the economy going global, and actually what we're witnessing now is more and more geopolitical conflict, not just to the east of us in Ukraine, but also in Gaza, and there are some worrying noises coming over from Taiwan. So, you know, these kinds of, this creates a lot of uncertainty for business and in our societies. We see that it's all reflected in how our politicians behave, how our society behaves, even if the conflicts are not directly taking place where we live and work. The second area I think that's worth mentioning is the climate change. We see increasing temperatures, environmental degradation, natural disasters, and all of that is putting a lot of pressure on politicians, on regulators, and on business to actually address those issues in parallel with everything else that's going on in the world. And the third actor that I will mention here at that sort of very high macro level is technology, which is really impacting every single sphere of our lives. And I think majority of us see technology as a very positive force, but nevertheless we are beginning also to worry about some of the potentially negative aspects, and especially we're seeing that now with the increasing debate around artificial intelligence. So with all of that going on, I think we can take it for granted that we live in complex times, and those complex times need great leadership. I think we agree with all of that. So to give us some examples of great leadership, I've asked our panelists to think of a female, either from a public sphere or from their own kind of private business lives, a female leader they've encountered who has made a major impact on how our panelists approach life. And I think in the first round of the panel, I would be very grateful if the panelists would start by telling us a story about the chosen leader and emphasize one, two of the key traits, characteristics that you believe make that leader and special to you. And I would like to start with you, Anna, if that's all right.
Sure, thank you so much, Olga. So it was a really difficult question.
I know.
I mean, and not least because I was trying to think about sort of female role models in the world of diplomacy, and I don't think there are very many, to be honest. And that's kind of one of the challenges when you look at sort of politicians and diplomats. That I think it gets harder to find someone. But nevertheless, I gave it a lot of thought, and in the end, I decided to go with Jacinda Ardern, who is, as all of you will know, former Prime Minister of New Zealand. She once worked for the British government, I have to say, when she was, she took a gap year in her 20s and came to London, and she worked in the British Cabinet Office under the government of Prime Minister Blair. So I just want to say there's a British connection there as well.
But the formative years.
Formative years. But I thought, I mean, maybe a couple of things that I thought were really interesting about her. I mean, so maybe two things that I want to highlight, because you will know many of the things that she achieved. One is that I think she was really clear about bringing sort of compassion and sort of inclusion and living the values that she stood for. And I think this is really hot. I mean, you know, fascinating presentation about being who you are and sort of acting in the world of bravery. But there are things that she did which I just think were really inspiring. She was out very early trying to bring indigenous New Zealanders into society and government, implementing policies like Maori teaching being core curricula in New Zealand schools, creating days that were on the calendar that would celebrate that part of New Zealand's heritage. And that's one example of sort of making sure that the government of the country was reflecting the society they were living in. Another thing that she did, I think 2019 was the first year that she implemented a well-being based budget. So rather than sort of thinking in a traditional way around finances and GDP and these kind of rather austere terms, really trying to pioneer different ways of governing that had people at the heart of the way that the government thought about its role. So I just wanted to kind of put those out there as sort of interesting ways that I think she tried to change the terms of being a prime minister in a country and bringing sort of compassion and people to the heart of what she stood for. And then the sort of trait that I wanted to highlight was that I think she was a feminist, right? I mean, she did not duck away from that term, and she was clearly an extremely young prime minister. You know, when she stood and in the final stages of the election that brought her to power, I think she was asked, about babies, and the first time she kind of answered it. Like sort of slightly none of your business. And then I think she was asked again, and she literally said, "This is none of your business. There is no place for you to ask me as a young woman this question." And she took a stand to make the bigger point, really, which is that you would not ask a man this question. Do not ask me this question. And of course, we now know that she went on to have a child as Prime Minister. She was probably pregnant when she answered that question. And she had a child in office, and I just want some parenthesis on this, that I don't know if you agree with this, but I think, whenever I think about senior women, I always start with the assumption that they do not have a partner, they do not have any children. That is my default assumption, and I always get surprised and shocked that you can have a partner and a family and be a powerful woman. And I have a partner and a family, and but it's a kind of thing that I start with as an unconscious bias within my own self. And she did the things that we know about, of having a child while she was in office, coming back to work, being the first person to go to the United Nations and sit in the General Assembly Hall and hold her baby, and just incredible things. And I think that's really important because I think I think this question about role models and being able to be an incredibly effective Prime Minister who is known for being, you know, a world leader, and she was a mother and got married at the same time. So for me, yeah, let me stop there, but I think those are two traits that I wanted to really highlight. I mean, first of all, governing in a different way and being a different kind of Prime Minister that really had compassion and people at the heart of it, but secondly, within that, not shying away of who she was and being able to live that life at the same time.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. And I think from what you've said and what we know of her, and also going back to what Jacek showed us, she's a great example of someone who, as you said, was very compassionate, sensitive, caring, but at the same time, very independent and brave. Yeah. So she, you know, I think very often we will see that female leadership represents those paradoxes, that the great female leaders can actually bring those two extremes together and somehow make them work. So now maybe for an example from more an everyday life, and I'd like to go to Anya to tell us a story about your teacher. Yes.
Hello. So indeed, I was thinking about the individual who had the biggest impact in my life, and in purpose I didn't go into the business because by that I could offend some of the colleagues I did not choose. So I thought maybe it would be better to go to the private side, and even this private one is, I believe, stronger. So I like to tell you the story of my mentor, teacher from my childhood. So when I was 9, I met my neighbor. Her name is Marta Wiśniewska-Majszyk, and she's a professor of the British literature, specializing in especially poems and never mind. She tried to influence the love on me for British literature without success. And I love it. But then she at some stage gave up. And when I was 9, and believe me, it was mid-80s in Poland, we have moved with my parents to the new area of suburbs in close to Warsaw, and it was a typical suburbs where I think on the street there were 18 houses, out of which 3 women were working. The model was non-working mother who was working, garden, not the typical style of I would say mid-80s. Strong focus on money, strong focus on relations and on men's career. And on the street there was one example, and that was Mrs. Marta, who I have realized is a professor of the literature. And I didn't know it for I think 7 or 8 years, because she was so modest and she was so much focused on teaching children as her additional task, because of course she had to support her husband, who was also a professor, with some earnings, but she did strongly influence my life. And how and why, that is the topic. So I believe that was the person that very strongly believed in me, in opposite to my my mother and father, who at some stage didn't believe that I'm very smart, and I think my father was quite open about it. I even asked him recently, why did you say so? I said, well, I looked at your writings, I looked at your grades, and but she was indeed, she very quickly realized that I have potential, and through all my life, and we know each other for many years, and first 20 years when I met her, so till more or less my end of 30s, we were in very close relation. And she was with me, first of course, teaching me English. And she was the most strict English teacher I have ever had in my life. Like literally when I was making a mistake, she was drawing a hanging man. When I reached the hanging man, parent standard of work, Jesus, I wish my kids had such a teacher right now. But she was explaining to me, because I'm so strict to you, I want you to grow, I want you to develop. Nothing comes for free in life. You have to make an effort to be successful, but you will be. I thought, Jesus, where am I and how hard it is? But indeed, the longer I lived, I saw that indeed, that's life. if you put effort into your life, if you put effort into your work, the fruits of that we will definitely see. So she has taught me that definitely the strong moral, strong ethic of work. What also she was a great example for me is the kind of independence, not kind, really independence. So that was not a woman who was sitting home. She had her career, she has chosen her life, she has chosen her pattern, and she was following this despite that everything around her shown that this is not a success. Because then being a successful woman, meaning having a husband and a lot of kids and a nice car, but she had a different route, and she has always thought, choose your way and go. Definitely you are going to have failures, definitely going to be problems, but if this is your way, just go for this. And by the way, you don't have to be professor, we agreed in a way. You don't have to be even extremely well educated. If your way is to be the salesman in the shop and you love it, be who you are. And I think that was quite eye-opening for me, how simple it is. And about complexity of life, what I admire with her is she was able to explain everything, not only English grammar, but I would say all life in a very simple terms. And I think that the pure leadership, and it applies to both genders, is if you try and you help people to understand the complexity, to make it simple. Because when I was analyzing your speech, Olga, I think each generation states that we live in a complex world.
Yes.
But I think that complexity comes from lack of understanding and making things complicated. So Mrs. Marta has taught me definitely understand to the root what the problem is, what the idea is, and then just execute. And then it's simple. And at some stage when I became a single mother and I came to her for coffee, we had such coffee, she was always drinking tea. She said, I was wondering whether to start building my own house, because I dreamed about having the house in the nice area. And she said, what is the problem? I said, well, I don't know, is it a problem or not? She said, if you were a man, would you do that? If you would have a husband, would you do that? I said, well, easier. I said, why? And then one by one, I realized, Jesus, I really don't need a husband to start. And of course, I did build this house. And I think those are the elements of really showing the simplification in life that is needed. And I try to do it within my life, to really go to the bottom of the problem and make things simple, because things are complicated if we want to have it complicated, make it complicated for others. And maybe the last aspect about not only self-confidence and belief in myself that she has taught me, it's also very strong moral and moral background of all her acting. She has taught me to have few key values in my life and just go for that and fight for that. And I really admired her as we lived very close by, when she had few times really nice discussions with neighbors or with some parents of the kids she was teaching about values, about influencing kids, and she could stand up for others, not having any interest for that. I thought this lady is really good. She's really cool. And well, maybe to sum up, when my daughter was born, her name is of course Marta. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you, Anya. What a wonderful story about this lady. I think we all wish we'd met her. Yeah. She sounds super. And what sort of struck me, you mentioned this moral backbone, how important it was to her and how she taught you that, but also it kind of making sense of the world around. She was helping you make your own sense of what was happening around.
Choose your own way.
Choose your own way, which also is something that sort of came through in the narrative that Jacek talked about. So I'll go to Agnieszka now, for another public figure, I understand.
Yes.
Unless you've changed your mind.
Well, it wasn't an easy task that you gave us, Olga. And when you said, think about that woman and think about the quality, I started with the quality and I felt like, wow, courage is the one that I want to bring to this conversation. And then I said, okay, so I need some courage to bring another public figure who is from diplomacy, having an ambassador on my panel. I said, like, oh, come on, I will try. So I want to bring in this conversation Madam Secretary Madeleine Albright, because she is a figure that definitely drove me, and also the fact that I'm a geopolitical freak and I really have every single chance whenever I have to have a conversation about geopolitics, I'm up for this. So she definitely impacted the way I look at the word. But why courage? I think there are at least three areas that made me think that she was really a very, very courageous woman. The first one is about speaking up and also making people accountable. She's a little bit of a, I would say, like the mirror image of Jacinda, where she came to the politics and as a public figure very, very late in her life. And she said something like this: "It took me quite a long time to develop a voice, and now that I have it, I am not going to be silent." And those who covered geopolitics know that she was never shy and never silent. She was very much known for her very bold opinions, to the extent that she was seen as an interventionist in so many occasions. And what I think made her quite special is that despite very dramatic events in her life, she needed to flee her country twice. First to flee away from the Nazis and then from the communists. And she found her own country, her own place, and she was a very vivid advocate of all the values that this country was about, in particular democracy. We all know her from in this part of the world as the one who made it possible for us to was like a big figure around or behind our NATO participation of Poland, of Hungary, and of Czech Republic. And but she is not such a I would say crystal, maybe it's not the right word, but she is also like polarizing figure in many conversations. If you think, for example, about the Balkans war and how she intervened, or if you think about some decisions that she made as a UN ambassador. It is not a figure that everywhere in the world is as, I would say, loved, and there are some people who believe that some of her decisions that she made were a mistake. And the last time I had a pleasure to listen to Madam Secretary was here in Warsaw in 2019, when she was a guest of Warsaw University. And these were already the times when there was like lots of populism around Europe, also in our parts of the world. And I was really, really, really surprised how hard she went on us. She said, like, actually, you've been, and I have a mandate to say this, she said, because I'm coming from this part of the world, and I was such an advocate for, you joining NATO, for you fighting for your democracy. And actually, out of a sudden, democracy is not such a big value in this part of the world. What happened? So she said, like, do you really want to go for simple answers? Do you really want to go for people who just giving you simple answers to disguise their own agenda? And it was quite amazing. You could drop in this room, and people were listening. So this is the first one why I really, really, really think she was courageous. The second thing was about clearly female agenda, and we all know about her really, she definitely doubled down on the female agenda when she became a powerful woman. And again, unlike, I know that the Prime Minister of New Zealand was a great advocate of women and a great feminist. Madeleine Albright has been feminist 40 years before, and then it was like really, really courageous. Again, I watched recently the interview that she gave a few years ago, when she said, and again I will quoted, because I don't want to misquote, but she said that when she has been promoted as a UN Security Council as the US ambassador, she said, like, I walked into the room, 15 seats and 14 men, all looking at me. At that time, and she elevated the female agenda at the top of the US mandate in the UN, and she said at that time it was a very risky agenda to have, because it was seen as, like, you know, why don't big geopolitical conversations, why not big conversations about how to dominate the world. She really elevated this agenda very, very high. And it was risky. It was extremely risky for a woman of her age to bring, women agenda so high. But she went for this, and this very popular saying that there is a special place for women who don't, a very special place in hell for women who don't support other women. It is, we all know it. It is what she said. And the last thing why I think, and maybe this is something that, so the first two you will certainly say, absolutely, yes, it was courage, but I think what really struck me was her humility and courage in discussing things that normally we are not that very comfortable to discuss. And it was about how she struggled with her personal things, including her very complicated divorce and her husband leaving her, how she discussed how is it to get older and get out of a job and finding her own way, about her height. She was 147 centimeters high. She said, actually, sometimes it's easier to jump over me around me. So you read her books, and so many times you laugh. You realize that you need to be really strong in yourself. You need to be really, really courageous to have so much distance to yourself, and just to be able to talk about things that normally we are not that very comfortable to talk about in front of so many people, and be relaxed and bring a little bit of humanity to this conversation. So these are the three things where I think she was like a beacon of courage and boldness.
What a great story about a fantastic person. Actually, I wanted to just highlight that quality of her, the sense of humor she had. I remember a story she told, and this was at the time when Hillary Clinton was the foreign secretary, and of course before Hillary Clinton was Condoleezza Rice. And she was telling a story about her granddaughter, who turned to her and said, "Grandma, what's so big about you being a female foreign secretary? Isn't every foreign secretary female?" Superb lady. And now for two of stories about our local activists. Beata, maybe I'll pass over to you first, and then Tina. Oh, you've got a microphone.
We have another one. Thank you. Thank you so much. I must say that this exercise of choosing a character was already very challenging, and I am happy to say that within 5 minutes I've got 16 names on my list. So I think it's already a success. Madeleine Albright was there, but also I had a Pocahontas on the other scale. So I decided to choose very practically someone you may know from the daily life, with whom I work on the daily basis, who will maybe give a very practical life, and it gave me a very practical life about the leadership I would like to follow and to develop. And I'm talking about Iwona Kozera. She is a partner in EY, but I work with Iwona in Fundacja Lidery Biznesu, Foundation for leaders, female leaders in business, for over 11 years now. I'm a member of Fundacja Lidery Biznesu as well. And Iwona, Iwona is our founder, and she has a very special way of leading us in complex time, because to lead a foundation like this in the time like this, influence in the context like we have, and also dealing with some very strong individuals. All the board members are strong individuals. Plus the team we have who supports us. I think it's something to learn. And maybe I will explain that by telling you how our average meeting looks like. So Ivona is always late for the meeting, and I think it might be in purpose. Because when she enters the room, we are already in the discussion, we are already fighting, we are already, you know, in a mess. And she comes and she says, "Hello girls, how are you today?" And we calmed down the atmosphere, we started to feel nice about the meeting, and she gives space to everyone to talk. She uses "thank you" so often. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this idea, and things like that. She makes everyone feel respected, and that's absolutely fantastic feature, because nevertheless, who is who, CEO or assistant, everybody feels respected. But at the same time, she's so much focused on the mission. She brings our discussion back to the track. She talks about values, and she also admits openly when she doesn't understand something. So let me understand, or I don't get it, or I am not good in this, so please tell me more. And that's such a fantastic thing that if I could summarize how she does that, it's obvious that this is the leadership which is based on moderating the teamwork. It's exactly like Olga is doing today with us. You are moderating the group of individuals towards a certain goal within a certain time, right? So I think this might be a great alternative way of leading people compared to the style I used to see a lot around. I will not say it was a male style, but because I also saw a female people working like that, which was based more on pushing people and scaring people. And I am not saying criticizing, because criticizing belongs to the very old age of leadership. But you know what I mean, pressing people. So I would say that with Ivona, with leaders like these, we land in the zone of comfort where we can discuss things, and we start to bloom as individual, but also as a team, and we are very, very effective, and that's also important. We are very, very loyal to the mission, to Ivona, to the foundation, to each other. So I think it brings only good results. So I would say this ability to moderate the teamwork into the given goal, it's something which I admire most, and which was very important for me to also to boost my way of leading people in reality. So I think.
Super, thank you, Daria, for this fantastic story about a woman that we know that works with us. Great inspiration, and I think one of the key traits, key qualities that is needed in these times is a good communication skill, and I think what you're describing is her amazing ability to moderate different views, to communicate, to listen to people, to get people's point of view across. Fantastic trait. Thank you. And now a story about another lady who many of us know, and a recent story, recent example. Thank you for bringing it to us, Tina.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you for giving us this homework. It was challenging for everybody, and I think that most of the stories that you shared also resonate with me. And thank you for sharing this beautiful, let's say, characters and leadership styles. I want to share with you somebody that I want to recognize for a very special, massive campaign, a very successful one. The campaign that you've probably heard about it in different medias, probably also you supported it personally. This is the story about Katarzyna Rosenfeld, the leader of a Women to Vote, Kobiety na Wybory campaign. I think that if you know Katarzyna, you know that she is a very successful top-class expert and business leader, so she has a lot in her agenda. But I expected when let's say, this year started, she recognized that we have a big challenge in Poland linked with the parliamentary elections. She just connected two dots. The first data about the fact that 25% of our society is female, and the second, the results of the outcomes from research showing that every second woman is not going to vote. And it was her big concern. And also it was a big concern for many of us, but she was the one who took the action, who launched the campaign, and also took the risk with her brand, personal brand, to start gathering other female and male volunteers, NGOs, companies, and she did it in a very professional way. I was the ambassador of this campaign, so I could also observe how she led the team of very top-class volunteers, very professional, very strong women, who just volunteered to take part in this activity. It was a big number of people, but in the core team it was more or less 60 volunteers. So Katarzyna very quickly organized them in different streams, and being a leader, she also gave empowerment to many of them. And she exposed great talents and created a very, very high-performing team with a space for everybody who wanted to support the campaign. And as the final result, she integrated more than 100 NGOs, more than 260 companies, different kinds of businesses, small ones, corporates, more than 1,000 ambassadors, also showing their brands, their faces in different parts and phases of the campaign. One of them, it was the I Vote Because actions in social media. Everything what she did, it was very transparent. She started with the key objectives of the campaign. First, this is about education. She wanted to really educate women how important it is to vote, to take this opportunity, and how important it is to understand that every single voice matters. The second principle that she defined, it was about non-political context of this campaign, which also helped a lot. And the third principle, it was about pro bono activity. So everybody who invested the time, image, anything, it was all pro bono. So from that perspective, the results are also outstanding, because I can show you, I give you the different numbers from the dashboard that the core team collected at the end of the campaign. Just maybe two, that finally this campaign reached more than 53 million views with a hashtag in different media, social media, traditional media, and also with different great artists included in the campaign, because more than 130 artists included their talents and prepared different posters in different materials that were used in this campaign. It was really visible in different, as I said, media channels, outdoor campaigns. So it was really very powerful and meaningful. So everything was just done for 0 zlotys, which was also impressive. So finally, we know the results of the turnout in Poland of the parliamentary elections. 74% of women participated in the elections, more than men. It was not about competing, but but it was really meaningful. And also, my comment about competition also presents the leadership style of Katarzyna, because she was very transparent, very engaged, but she was not competitive at all. When we discussed about other campaigns that also promoted participation of women or participation of Polish citizens in the elections, she said always, "This is perfect. I like it. Let's create the synergy effect. Let's just do this snowball effect." So this is also the example of her style. So transparency, empowerment of different talents, very strong people in the campaign, very inclusive way, how she invited everybody who wanted to support the campaign, women and men, all generations, people from big cities, small villages. So she was very, very inclusive. And I think that this leadership style represents for me something that is very unique and should be much more popular in our times, in this complex times, complex environment. This is something that we can easily transfer to the business environment, because when I work with different CEOs, now they are discussing how to transform their roles, how to redefine their roles. And I think that Katarzyna presented how to do it, not by pushing people, not by managing, leading in the transactional way, but very transformational way. So she did a great job. She did it on her way, let's say in her own style. It was extremely successful. I think this is also sustainable. It will remain with us for I think generations, because now we really believe, and we show that every voice matters. And this is also easy to be transferred to the business environment. And also, I think this is something that we can really build on when we think about the future of AI, technology revolution. I think that this human aspect, leadership aspects of this kind that Katarzyna presented are absolutely, this is the leadership style of the future.
Fantastic, thank you, Tina. It was a great story, and I actually remember being with Kasia when we heard the statistics about women not voting traditionally, and she was shocked. And then next thing I know, Kasia's leading this amazing nationwide campaign. So it's sort of, you know, a great example of somebody who didn't just talk about an issue, but actually with zero budget, went out and did something about it. Super. So I'm going to, in a minute, I'm going to go and ask you to ask questions of the panelists, but also to tell your own stories if you'd like to. But before I do that, I'd like to go back to the panelists for just a very quick round this time on back to the complexity of the times. So what do you see in our current world as kind of very almost challenging? And I know some of you have already alluded to it, but I'd like us to sort of bring the context into our discussion, context in which we live, work, etc. And then to say how the trait, either the trait that you've chosen in your heroine, or a trait that you've heard from the others, is playing out in this context. Why in this context that trait is very important. So maybe I'll mix it up now. So Agnieszka, I'll go to you first.
Sure. Well, there were so many that I'm just thinking whether I should stick to courage or whether I should continue what has been discussed. But I will stick to courage, maybe for the reasons that are not that obvious. Because why courage is important these days, you will say, because it's important to make the right decision. It is important to stand up for your values. It's all absolutely the case. But I would want to say why I believe courage is absolutely essential these days, but it's not maybe that obvious. The first one is you need to really be bold and courageous to be open for risk and for failure. And today's times, given technology, given sustainability, given how the world is changing, requires us to take risk and understand that failure is part of the game. This is not how we as women have been brought up, and for the strive of perfection that we all have in us, we need to be really courageous to go out there and say, actually, I will try something else. I will be fine with looking maybe stupid, maybe inadequate, maybe not good enough. It really takes lots of guts to do this. So this is the first thing why I believe courage is so important. And another one, which is alluding to everything that has been said on this panel, I think there is a reason for the word encouragement, have courage in it. I think you need to motivate people, to show people the way, to show them that things are possible. So to encourage them, you need to have courage in yourself. And that was it all here.
Thank you. Thank you for being brief as well. So maybe I'll go to the ladies. Tina, do you want to go next? Briefly?
Maybe I will just combine the question with the competencies of the future. I want to mention about networking skills, because we are here today, probably because this is a great forum of people gathering around the topic, also people invited because of the similar background or shared values. And I believe that we also encourage networking even more today than 5 years ago. And this is something that can be developed in very, let's say, structured ways. So everybody has different networks that we create, we support, we bring value to, or we expect value from. And this can be also done by, let's say, by purpose, and in the way that we can, let's say, build our strategies. And this is something that can help us grow and also develop and bring value to different communities. But this is nothing natural in our Polish culture. When we think about networks and networking skills, we usually think that this is something transactional. This is something that we can, let's say, switch on when we need help or when we are in troubles. But this is not the case. I believe that networking is a very powerful source of relations, contacts. This is something that we can develop because we are just curious, different people, different perspectives. We can really learn a lot, not only when we need advice, but also when we just want to discuss about the context of our complex times and complex environments. So I want to encourage everybody to think about our networks and networking skills, because I believe that we can really ask ourselves some questions. What kind of networks we want to support, what kind of networks we want to be the part of, what value we add to our networks, what we expect from different networks. And this is just because we like people, we just encourage relations with others. And this is because we can really develop our skills thanks to this kind of attitude.
And as you demonstrated with your story about Kasia Rosenfeld, it is through the networking that we can actually achieve great things.
Absolutely, yeah.
Super. Beata, would you like to go next?
I have many thoughts. I would like to comment on 3 things, if possible. The first thing which comes into my mind is resilience. I think we are living in such a complex time that people start to be weak, and there is a risk that we will be weak. So I think we must find time to take care about ourselves, to be a better leader and to be a more happier person. To find this balance, and I must say I feel quite good in this, because if I think about my frustration time or depression time, it never lasts longer than 2 hours, thanks God. But it doesn't come like this. You have to work on this. You have to find other areas maybe than those serious areas like work and missions. In my case, it's a family, traveling, sport. I am very active in sport. And the more I invest in those other areas, I am a better leader and less fragile, I would say. So I think that's so important to remember. And then the second thing about courage, I think this is the key issue, but I also tested on myself that if I say I have to have courage, it sounds a little bit like a must, like an ambition. But if I say I want to be curious, which is almost the same thing, it works better with me. So I would say curiosity is also about going out of your comfort zone and being brave. But the naming changed my way of doing new things and being brave. And it works better with me. So try maybe with yourself, maybe it will also work better with yourself. Curiosity, not courage. And the third thing is being authentic. I think it's so important that we don't have to look, we don't have to be young, we don't have to have high heels all the time, and we don't have to be wise always. It's good to admit I have a headache, I have a bad day, I don't know anything, or just don't look good for 1 or 2 days because you feel bad. I think it's so good to give ourselves kind of allowance not to be perfect and to be authentic, because that really builds the trust, but it also builds the inner power for a long time. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you, Berta. Maybe I'll go to Anya and then I'll leave you as the final voice in this session. So Anya, what are your thoughts on the key traits?
Thank you. Lucky I'm not the last one. I think it will be very difficult. I would focus on 2 things, and they are very strong related to how I think and how I hope I act. Is first to be self-confident, which is very much linked to courage. Yes, it's definitely self-confident in the things you believe you should do, believe people should do, believe what should be happening. But self-confidence always needs to be aligned with knowledge and proper information. And I was recently really inspired by the lady, Claudia Coltin, yes, who has won this Economic Nobel Prize, because I think she really finally solved the topic that has been discussed about not equal pay between men and women, and really deep dive into this theme and broke it into some kind of actions and real statements. And I thought this is exactly what leaders should do. Yes, you have a topic that is hanging somewhere, you deep dive, you sort out, and you know what to do next. And that, I hope, is something what we as leaders should be doing, and I try to do to a based knowledge fact together with self-confidence that you can sort it. And for the complexity, I keep repeating, complexity comes with lack of understanding and lack of information. More simplifying information, simplifying tasks, simplifying approach you give to people, they follow you more because they simply understand them. But it has to be linked with courage, knowledge, and self-confidence that you can help people.
Super. Thank you, Anya. And for the final words.
I agree with all of the. I find it impossible really to come down to one word. Yeah. I think that's the challenge, because I agree with everything everybody has said in terms of. Yeah, I mean, when I think about sort of leadership, the three things that you pulled out are exactly what we come back to time and again. I mean, I think so. I guess I was maybe I will build a bit on what the others said, because I think that you know, I suppose I'm getting lots of questions at the moment about the change of government in Poland and the situation in Ukraine and what does the UK think about it all. And so it's a kind of big complex problem that we're tackling with, and you've given many examples, I think, really effectively of the kind of sort of big picture as well as things that we're all trying to wrestle our way through. But I kind of really agree. I mean, two things to really highlight from what you. I mean, no, I agree with all three things that you said. To be honest, I mean, the first one is this kind of you just have to keep going. And the first thing I say to this is like, well, we're not going to give up because we're not going to give up. You know, we're just going to keep going. I mean, failure isn't an option because it just isn't an option. And when you talk about climate change, or you talk about sort of democracy, or you talk about trying to tackle some of these injustices in the world, it just isn't an option. So let's just keep going. So number one, and to do that you need resilience. You need personal resilience. I completely agree with that. And finding out where yours comes from becomes really important. And then the third one that you said, and I think authenticity or courage or however we define it is also a really incredibly important skill, because if you can be yourself, if you know yourself, if you bring your whole self, you are the most powerful. And for me, this is partly about the professional, but it's also about knitting together these other parts of our lives and realizing that we're people, and we, not only to be our best, we not only have to sort of be these really clear thinkers with the evidence and the data and have solved the problem, but we also need to think about how are we at our best, which means the human side and the sort of recognizing that we will be at our most powerful if we can bring some of this vulnerability and share some of those challenges with the people who are working around us. So I don't think that's one answer, and I don't think it solves the problem, but I think it sort of demonstrates why this is such a rich discussion. It's quite hard to simplify, but I do think we come back to these kind of issues about courage and sort of personality and authenticity and being present and creating space for ourselves and living it. Those are the things that ultimately sort of sit around this issue.
And getting on with it, I think, putting on quite simply. Somebody, I think it was Anya Goldman, who said that in leadership, you don't need just one trait, which is, I know I made your task absolutely impossible asking me for the one. And he talks about that, leadership styles are like, imagine a golf bag where you've got different golf clubs for different types of situations. And it's part of the skill is knowing which one is needed at any particular time. And I think everything that's been said here has very much resonated the fact that there isn't just one simple answer. But I think now it's time to turn to our wonderful audience to hear your voice, to hear your thoughts, your examples. We have time. I'm just looking at Ula. So we have good time. So we talked about courage, authenticity. Who would like to? Who's got the courage to go first? Super. Okay. Do you have? Why don't I do that and then I'll have.
Thank you, Elżbieta Cichońska. I'm from Europe. It was great. I was listening carefully, and loads of very good examples and attributes that are really important, but I wanted to go first before I forget what I was going to say. So courage, I think it's something that can also characterize me a bit. I can share a bit that I had to take a decision on my major career progress when I was sick. And I don't know whether it can be comparable with having a baby, but maybe a bit, because it's a bit of an unknown and uncertainty that you have to deal. And that's also probably a characteristic of contemporary times, this uncertainty. But what I was going to emphasize is that that was not brought in, so that's why I want to throw it in, that you can be very lonely when you are a leader. Especially when you say, okay, you have to be courageous, you take a decision, endorphins are up to the ceiling, but then they go down. And what you do to be need to be successful
then you need to be really determined, patient, and have positive attitude, and believe in the success. And one more thing, not to be lonely in the role. I think there is a value to create now leadership teams rather than leaders like stars, because if you are not alone in this leadership role, then you can really have, first of all, better life as a leader and better outcomes because you are relying on the team. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elżbieta. I think Alina wanted to go, did you?
Yes. I'm not a leader, I'm an expert.
Yes, you are.
But I really admired everything you had said, and especially the word that came into my mind before Agnieszka uttered it was courage. However, I wanted to say about something else. Some time ago, I saw a documentary about excavations of Homo sapiens skeletons from the times when we were old hunters, not hunters-gatherers, hunters. And women's skeletons were actually the same as men's. They were the same height. Apparently, they were of the same bone structure, strong, and they were equally well fed. And once we, the humanity, became hunters, gatherers, and farmers, the role of women deteriorated. And only now, since I think a couple of years, it has picked up. Women's role is becoming more and more important. But then my thoughts went a different way. I mean, we are talking about wonderful women's traits and how women are changing the world and which attributes are the most important. But we're not alone. There are also men. And I'm thinking how we can, or how the women can make the world better by changing the way of thinking of men, so that again, after 15,000 years, we can become equal. But I think that perhaps I may be wrong, but this is the time that we could spread our values, compassion, understanding, and attributes to the men's world. I think I have one success, and I'm going to praise myself. I raised a son who's a feminist. I don't know, thank you for that. Sorry for getting a real challenge. Lady behind you, just for that.
Hello, hi everyone. My name is Marta Kozińska. Thank you all for the wonderful examples and the stories that you shared. And this insight about the skeletons, I didn't know that, but this is amazing. This is really amazing. And it's about, well, my comment, and I would like to ask a question actually, because we are here in this amazing event, but we still have the female in the title. And the fact that we are still talking and sharing these amazing examples that women on their way to success have to break so many biases, so many things go through their way, and we need to fight so many things, and we still brag about that. It says that we still have the big problem with that. that we are having this big, I don't know, stone on our backs, and some of us could break it and reach success, and we are proud of that. And what could happen, and what would be the thing that you ladies would do? I don't know, even one very particular step or change in the society that could bring us to somehow this very basic start, when we are all equal, when the term female will not longer be something like, wow, she did that. It will be just like, 100 years ago, women didn't have the right to vote. When they got it, it was a big thing. Right now, it's just normal. So when the time will come when successful women will be just like, well, like foreign ministry is a lady. It's normal. So one but very concrete thing you should or you would do to start this journey to that point that I think that we all women would like to be in. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that great question. I will give our panelists a little bit of time to think that through. And maybe some other questions, comments?
Joanna Zakrzewska. It's really, really wonderful to hear all your stories. I mean, they are really inspiring. And what I would like to take from this meeting today, it's something a little bit more closer to our daily lives. I mean, if each of us could think about, I don't know, one thing or two things within this week, maybe not today, but within this week, that we can do for other women, like helping them or supporting them in realization of their goals, that would be something, I guess. I mean, all those events we are organizing, or let's say, or organizations which are supporting women, these are like great things, great events. But what I'm really trying to say or underline is that what is important is something what we are doing on a daily basis. And for the ladies who are living next to us, right? So this is something what I would like to take out. But there is one question I would like to ask Her Excellency, as it is some sort of, let's say, continuation of our discussion during the interview at the ACC Thought Leadership meeting. You mentioned there that you were at some point of your career in diplomacy very close to the Queen Elizabeth. And I would like you to share some short information about how, what type of leader she was. As we were discussing today about courage and or even like being alone or sometimes stubborn, I think you might share some interesting things here.
It would be great to get a different perspective to the crown.
So I guess, I mean, she was definitely in the later stages of her life when I worked with her sort of most closely, and I don't want to exaggerate how close it was. I mean, it was in the stuff that she was doing internationally. By that stage, she had become too elderly to travel, so it was very much about leaders and ambassadors who would come and see her at her home in Buckingham Palace or in Windsor. What do I think about her? I think so. I mean, I do think she was incredible. I mean, I really did feel that when she died, and we all sort of sat there and said, you know, this is an incredible woman who was at the top table for the entirety of her sort of adult life, and at a period when, who was it who said you turned up and, Madeleine Albright. I mean, yeah, I mean, she walked, I mean, this would have happened all the time, right? She walked into the room and you know, she would be the only woman or one of very, very few. And yet, people had such respect for her. I mean, it really is an incredible thing that she created, and I don't know what, you know, does that come because you got a crown, or, you know, I mean, what is it that gave, that she achieved this sort of, this sense that people wanted to hear what she had to say. And I think there is something in that. I mean, I think she worked very hard. I mean, you know, the thing about her and the King now, you know, they get briefings every day. You know, their entire life is trying to understand the country that they live in and the world around them. And you know, we give them papers. You know, that is part of their incredibly hard-working, relentless work to be a force for good in the world and to try and understand how she would use this very niche power that she had to be to help others. And okay, I think maybe this is the story. Sorry, I'm sort of waffling to try and get there, but I think that the essence of it, what I observed was that she was a safe space, and people would really value what she had to say. And I've talked to previous Polish presidents who had the opportunity. I mean, Aleksander Kwaśniewski has said this to me, Lech Wałęsa have said it to me. You know, I saw it with ambassadors when they went to talk to her, is that, you know, she really sort of listened, and she didn't say very much, and she certainly didn't say very much in public, but it did mean that she was able to offer some advice sort of in private, and Prime Minister, I think UK Prime Ministers who, as you know, go and see her once a week and sort of have this audience with the Queen, that she from all of the learning and all the experience she had over you know, 50, 60, 70 years of being in this kind of really unique perspective, she could give a piece of advice about, does this matter? You know, is this an unusual problem? Have I seen something like this before? I don't know what she said in those meetings, but I think somehow this ability to add value to what people, you know, be a safe environment for people who are at the top. And I think it was a point that sorry, I don't remember who said it, but this point about being lonely at leadership. It was one of, yes, sorry, it was your comment, wasn't it? Both of your comment, really. And I think it's really true. And when you get to be a head of government or a head of state, there really aren't very many people you can talk to. And the fact that she could be that person, I think, was also part of her power. So let me stop there, because I mean, there's lots to say, but she also, it was an inherited position, and that's a bit odd as well.
Can I just add something regarding the Queen? Because she, even though she wasn't actually permitted to openly express her opinion, we've talked about, the panelists have talked about being yourself, yes, and being authentic. And I do remember that she had a way of expressing her opinion non-verbally. I know that, I mean, probably you all heard of when Trump visited the UK and she was wearing a badge that Obama had given her. So this was one way that she was able to be herself, you know, despite restrictions that were imposed on her because of her position. She still somehow managed to be herself and show her opinion. Thank you.
And if I can just add to that, because I think going back to the kind of the narratives that we tell about women, there is still the narrative about women being in her prime of life, being gorgeous and beautiful. And I think what she inspired in me is the sort of belief that actually with age you get wiser, you become a bit of a sage, and that can also provide value and make you relevant and interested and interesting in the world. And there aren't really that many role models of women who remain active into a very old age. And you know, she certainly didn't have to go on as long as she did, but that sense of duty and belief in her contribution, and also working hard in order to contribute, I think is truly inspiring to an older lady. So yes, there's a voice there at the back.
There's a voice from the back.
Have we got a microphone from
Yes.
us?
Yeah. So the red voice from the back.
I'm Małgosia Gryz, Strong Women in IT, and I loved your stories, really. I know many of you in person, but there are also a few ones whose directs have been working with me in the previous company. I'm talking to you, Agnieszka, now. It was Malina Jankowska, who was such a great admirer of your belong to mission in life and business. And ladies, the thing which really makes such a difference for me personally is that each of you is talking about building the world where women and men have got a place to be, a reason to believe. And when Tina was talking about Kasia Rosenfeld, I so much share this respect to this amazing lady, because she gave all of us a reason to believe. All of us were having this feeling of being equal, important. Our voice was heard. And I think all of us exist in this world to give us this hope. By the way, I also have a a man who is 27, that's my son, and he's cooking better than his girlfriend. So thank you so much. You were wonderful, your stories were amazing, and so much of inspiration.
And
Thanks
by
a
the
lot.
way, it's not over yet, there'll be more stories. So any other voices, comments from the room? Yes, please. Could we pass the microphone up here? No. Oh, where's it gone? Oh, sorry.
Annika Westwood. I am the teacher, consultant, and the medical doctor. I have a few jobs. So my perspective when I'm sitting here, and for the last 30 years I'm experiencing being a woman in many worlds. I was in the medical world, I was in the IT world. I'm right now teacher, and I'm still working with women a lot, and lead women as leaders. And I have so many thoughts that I don't know what to say, but I think it's the ladies' question is about numbers. The more of us will be courageous enough, the more of us, because I remember a long time ago, I was the only one who went to IT classes, because only boys were allowed to go there in my school. You know, a long time ago, yes, I know, but it was the reality. So I was the one, and there I was working as IT person for many years. So the more of us will say, oh, I want that, and reach, the more of us will get it. That's the one thing. What I got really, really struck is caring and sensitive. No, I don't want to be perceived as caring and sensitive, seriously. I don't. I will tell you why, because it gives you a first function in your life. If someone tells you you are caring and sensitive, the rest of the message, like independent and brave, is disappearing. I want to be considered as independent and brave. My English husband usually says, you do as you want, and he's angry at me. I said, thanks God! You know, I was craving my whole life to do this. And this is, he thinks he wants to kind of, from his 50 plus, so you know, from these old times when men are believing that women should not really do what they want, and actually he admires that, so it's a double thing. So I do what I want, and we have to focus on being that, because when they tell us, be sensitive and caring, you really, okay, this is my first thing, you know, I must remember. And then we look who is being chosen to government on which positions. And all the speculations last week, how many women are taking the best and most important influential positions? few. Education will get something, maybe some health, maybe, you know, all this sensitive and caring. And the guys will take army, the guys will take everything else, and the things that are really important for the society. And about the situation of one woman entering the 16 men room, it happens still all the time. I have clients like this, young women, super professional, that have to prove, being in finance, my latest example, she had to prove that in front of 16 guys, and she almost psychologically collapsed. So actually we are in the difficult times, but they are not more difficult than they were before. For me, they are the same. Like, they are just circumstances that, in my humble opinion, are indicating that this, I don't want, patriarchal-centric world is collapsing. Let it collapse. We will build something different after that. From all perspectives, we see that what has been built by this civilization is not really good for us. We have to struggle with the climate, we have to struggle with this inequality, poverty, lack of education. Why? Because the man's goal is to achieve a success. And we all here, since we met, talk about some common good. Did you notice that? It's very interesting. So maybe when we will be growing in numbers, not being sensitive and caring, but first courageous and independent, you know, putting this first, as we will get more power in our places everywhere. And thank you. And thank you for being here. I came from Gdańsk.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Gdańsk. And actually, your story has reminded me that as I was growing up professionally in the UK, Margaret Thatcher was in power. And she was my role model. And the reason for that was that I could definitely see the caring and sensitive in me, but she gave me the perspective of someone who's being really strong and powerful and not, you know, I remember when she said, "This lady's not for turning," I kind of thought, wow, yes, this is who I want to be as well. So without giving up the feminine traits, I'd like to have the choice of being the way I need to be. So super, super story. So now I'll go back to our panelists, and this time we thought that asking you about stories about other ladies was difficult. This time I'm going to start by asking you stories about yourself, or rather, I'm going to ask you to answer 3 questions. Firstly, could we please go back to the question asked by the lady there? So, have you got any thoughts about the one thing that we would need to do in order to bring equality? And then I'd like you to tell a very brief story about yourself as to what is your super trait, what is your superpower that you're using in your day-to-day leadership, and what is the thing you're working on trying to develop. So we're asking you to be a little bit, to provide more disclosure about yourself. Anna, would you like to go first or last?
I've thought of the first one. That's been very hard, that second. So no, I was thinking about it. The things, thank you. I think I'm a reflective thinker. Maybe that's what my last one is. But the thing to change, and I'm really inspired by the Iceland women strike, and the reason that I'm inspired by it is this question of mental load. You know this term. I mean, it basically means that you just, even if you're not responsible, you're still holding the problem of thinking about it, and your entire domestic life generally sits with you as a woman. So if there was one thing, I think the Polish government, and I noticed, by the way, the temporary Polish government has quite a lot of women in it. But anyway, just to comment for a moment.
This choice is almost expensive.
No, I understand your comment. No, I understand. I do understand it. I completely understand your comment. But I mean, the question of as a woman and all the things that we have to think about before you get to the thing that you're actually doing, which is trying to run a multi-billion-pound business or be a world leader. And that is like getting everything done at home. So I think that there should be a law that makes men take responsibility for the washing. And by that, I do not just mean take it out of the washing basket, put it in the washing machine. I mean, buy the powder, you know, separate it out, make sure nothing gets runs, do the ironing, fold it, and put it back in the drawer. And I mean everything. And I use this as an example. I'm just saying that, you know, we have to have a division that does not make an automatic assumption that for 70% of your brain of keeping the plate spinning at home, and then you just can't get there. And the reason I notice this is when I talk to a lot of women who are thinking about applying for jobs, talking about, you know, being an ambassador, will I be up to it? And we honestly spend about 30 minutes discussing what their kids are going to do, how it's going to be, can they make their partner move, you know, what's it going to be like being a woman in this environment. And I have this with people who perhaps I've a huge focus to try and support minority ethnic people. We go through all of these issues about how is it going to be for me in this situation before we get down to actually it's a great job, this is what I want to do with it, this is where we get there. So I think this kind of question about mental load is a really, really important one. If there's one thing men can do, is do the flipping washing. I say, so that's my thing. My superpower, and what am I working on? So I think I've got much better. I mean, I think this is probably, I am actually out there now. I think vulnerability, I just don't care anymore. I mean, I'm really but I just have to say this is not something, I think I'm super helped by getting to a level of an age and a superiority that means that I don't worry anymore, but I now just don't care. And I am so happy to talk about my vulnerabilities in public, probably way too much, but I think it really has helped, and I think the reason, and actually again, I'm not disagreeing with you on purpose, but the thing that I think I agree with you on, this question about sensitivity, but by being vulnerable, I think I'm creating an environment that tries to draw this out of people who would not have previously said it, and to create an environment that men as much as women feel able to be sensitive and caring and compassionate as well. So I just to nuance, I know that you're nodding as well, but
it's a longer process.
Yes, I agree it's a longer process, but I think that's something that I feel very proud of. On the working on, I would say.
Because otherwise, I'm sorry, because otherwise we end up in these men's caves. And we get destroyed. I mean, this is what happens. Yeah. I mean, I'm really hands-on in these stories and everyday business life here in Poland, which my husband considers super paternalistic here. Yeah. So patriarchal, and I'm sorry to say that, but I needed to explain my intention that I truly believe that at the end of the day, that far more compassionate environment must be, but. But we can't go through this just going, oh, let's be, you know, compassionate to the guys that are standing with you. No, we don't believe in that, and they have power. So it's really transition time that we have. I'm sorry.
I know. I think we could sit. I completely agree with you on all of that. So the thing I'm working on, I think. So I just have to be careful about how I say this, but I think it's around mental health. I mean, I'm kind of, I have some kind of challenges in my family, and I think that means I have to say juggling work and home is quite hard. And I think as an embassy, we've been really talking about this issue of sort of well-being and how it manifests itself and the kind of challenges people have in their real lives. And again, it sort of comes back to the sort of vulnerability point of sort of trying to have a much more open conversation about this. And create an environment where people can really be themselves and sort of take my own I need to take from that as well. So it's slightly bringing yourself in, but then working out what you can ask from each others. And so I think that's probably the thing I'm working on, is sort of how do we really have this kind of compassionate sort of environment at work, and what's appropriate to bring into that and what's not, and how do you sort of stay strong and deliver when actually we all have that going on as well. So I hope that's
absolutely, and I think as the world is changing, and this point about resilience versus fragility and various other things that we are experiencing, and the fact that we no longer have the office, work in the office and life at home, the two have become kind of much more joined up. That requires new boundaries around, what support we give.
Which is exactly what we were talking about last year,
absolutely,
wasn't it?
Absolutely. Well, it's good to see that at least the topics are constant. Tina, maybe you could go next.
This is such a big topic that I'm thinking how to address the key points.
3 questions.
Yeah. So the first point regarding the journey, the process that we are in. I want just to regarding the gender, the balance, the diversity. I want just to refer to the book that I've read. I have already read. Łopki. This is the book about our grandmothers and the lifestyle. So it was shocking to me when I just read the examples of the lifestyle of women and men, children in 100 years ago. So it's a huge progress. Of course, we are not there, and I believe that we should still use female and different, let's say, words that still changing the reality, because we are not there. And I hope that thanks to the European Union regulations that are coming in 2 years' time, we will see more women in the advisory boards and management boards of different companies. I believe that it will be the, let's say, good reason to think about succession plans, and also think about development programs for women, mentoring programs, and always I think that the whole work is on the both sides. So we need more men understanding the role and benefits coming from diversity, but also we need more bold women who are, let's say, willing to take responsibility, go out of our comfort zone, and be challenged in different environments, different, let's say, and take different opportunities. Regarding the examples of my, let's say, talents, and also answering to your questions, what we can do, I always believe in leadership and action. I mentioned about networking skills, so I use networks also to support women in different moments of their lives. I will give you the example from this week, because we asked about this week. So today at 4, I'm co-facilitating the development program for female CEOs from Ukraine. This is about self-leadership in crisis, and this is the 3 modules program that I designed with my colleague from Ukraine, that we are sharing pro bono with CEOs from different companies from Ukraine, just to create a platform for sharing the topic, how to lead crisis and how to build resilience and how to support each other in the context not only of war but also other crises that we are in. And also I'm the mentor in the great program launched by Ela Raczkowska, who is here with us. Jestem Liderką. This is the program for young leaders, female leaders. They are 16, 17 and 18 years old, coming from small towns and small villages. They are great, they are like diamonds. And I'm a mentor, and I mentored my mentee this Sunday afternoon, Ella, so we are in progress. So also I'm the part of leadership network. I see my friends from the network. When I joined the network, I just proposed that we can use our platform, and Olga also, and yes, from the network, we can use our platform to share our failures. And we created the sessions that I just called fuck up learning, just to discuss between us in a very, let's say, comfortable and very confident way about the events that we experienced in our professional life, our private life, that we can learn from. And this platform is also the example how we can support each other, how we can promote each other, how we can just work together and be together as friends, as colleagues, as professionals. And last but not least, I believe that we should really include men to all of these topics, because if we are discussing, let's say, women challenges in the silos, it doesn't work at all. So I'm for.
Is that what you're working on then, Tina? Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Berta?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to refer to your question. Sorry, what was your name? Marta, because I think it is a good summary of what we are talking about. And I also believe in such a world that some years from now I have a daughter and I have a son, so both are interesting for me. Future for them is interesting for me. That in some years, about the position we are having in the company or in the politics, it will not be related to gender. Like it is not related to age, hopefully already, or to color of your hair, or your height, or any other feature. It should be normal. It shouldn't be at all an issue whether you are male or female. It's about the competences, leadership, communication experience, things like that. That's my dream. And of course we are still far away from that. We are in the process of actually changing this world and fighting against stereotypes. That's what we are doing. We are calling it female way, but truly speaking, it's a new way of leadership and being a human. And we have a lot to offer to everyone, including men, like you said. We are not alone. To create a new stereotypes against the old ones. And I agree that such process is a difficult one, and I agree with you that we have to fight at the beginning a little bit for that, to have this voice heard. But at the end of the day, we are not against men, and it's also good to know that a lot of men are already there. And to give you some hope, I can share with you that last week I was having a participation in a very nice mixture of about 140 CEOs, led by a man, and there was about 110 men and about 30 female. And we were voting about the interesting subjects for the future to discuss. And the first answer was the life after being a CEO, not hard things about the leadership. And the second most important subject for everyone, including the majority of men, was, is my life of CEO the best life I could have? Then after that, we were sitting at a table of 12 people, moderating by a woman actually, but it was just three CEOs, female CEOs, and 9 men. And we were discussing about emotions in leadership. And it was such a fantastic discussion. And at the end of this discussion, the men, they said, thank you girls that you were with us, because thanks to you, this evening was fantastic. If it were only men around the table, we would have been talking about, different things. We would be showing up as peacocks and so on. Thanks to you, we had fantastic things. We could finally talk about things which are really important to us, but we are afraid to show it out. So it was such a good evening, and I wanted to tell you that those 110 CEOs are female leadership style, I would say, yes? And so we are in the way, and I hope there's a hope. There's a hope, and there's a process, and there's a hope.
Superpower.
Superpower, yes. And my superpower, well, I started to talk about being balanced and having energy, positive energy. And I think this is something which characterized me a lot. I worked on this a lot internally to find my own model of how to get the balance. Because truly speaking,
Work-life balance, it's not enough for me because of course you have in both areas you have passion, you have love, but both at work and at home you have first of all responsibilities. You have to do something for the others. So I was missing the third element in my balance model, and now I believe it's home, work, and myself. And I really try to be disciplined to have time for just for me. And I do a lot of traveling. I told you I do a lot of sport. I am quite good in this. So it also shapes my leadership skills. So I'm a triathlonist, active triathlonist. So that's so important to me to have this area which was meant to be just for me, but actually it resulted in me being better also as a leader and being better as a mother and grandmother and daughter and wife. So that's I think something which I can talk about. I am also a mentor, so usually my mentees come to me to find this balance. I am a mentor for them, how to find balance in life. That's the first subject they refer to me about. So I'm very proud of that I can be, and I know it's possible to be good in all those three areas. Good enough to be happy. Okay, that's my thing. And the things which I am working on. Someone told me once that I'm a strong leader, proud of my fragility, which is true, and I cultivate that. But there are two more things I try to learn. One, I try to learn from my husband, because there's a big difference between us, how we approach the new task or a challenge. If I have a new task or challenge, immediately I start to think, okay, how am I going to do this? I have a plan, I know how to start, which resources I need, and how much time it will take. And my husband immediately thinks, who can do it for me? And that's such a fantastic thing. I can learn from him. I really try to practice that. It's difficult, you know. But it works. And I'm very happy because then I have more time. And the second skill I am trying to practice more, which is a little bit related to that. Before I was a person who was trying to do everything by my own without asking for help. And if I was already dead, then maybe I asked for help, or rather not. Today, I know I can start with asking for help. So before I am exhausted, I already someone who helps me. And that's also such a fantastic skill I am learning, and I can be much better in. I'm in the way, and yeah, it helps me a lot. Okay, thank you.
Fantastic, thank you, Beata. Anya?
So maybe I'll start with Marta, and I'm very happy that such questions are being asked. Why do we need it? Because that gives me an hope that we won't have such panels in the future focused on women. But as long as there is still a need, I think we may be as broken records repeating our stories to encourage other women to just be more brave and reach for that. So I hope one day we will be not talking about female leadership, female aspects, but I think the sign that you're asking is a good sign that it's coming. And I think that for me the key is balance. So because we are in Standard Chartered, I will be talking about Standard Chartered. So for instance, our organization here in Poland has won recently such a reward of being a company that has a balance. And I was very happy about it and very proud, because this is literally what I think we have. So from female to male ratio, we are 44% women, the rest is men. So we are really getting closer to the proper balance. And for the senior leadership of the WLLC, so the leadership team, I would say 70% are women, so I don't have a balance here. But we look at skills, and I think in the future the balance is not looking, is it a man, is it a woman? It's just who is more skilled to do the proper job. But in order for the people to be successful, there must be a proper representation, that it is fair. So what I like to do, and I think what all of us we want to do, is to give equal chances and have a proper representation of the potential candidates, and then the best is being chosen. And for me, women were chosen because they had skills and they were really good. So for the future, I hope we will be talking more about balance. About the question about myself and power, I have two powers. First of all, I'm high energy, so I really wake up and I want to do things, and I have still this power to do things, and also I feel very responsible for the place I run. So that's another extra power that you get. And what Beata mentioned is what next. So I have two things about what next is. One related to knowledge. So far I was focused on retail, then on financial crime, and right now I start moving to a different interest of mine, that is ESG, simply because it touches me. Yeah, so I started to read more and more about that. So from knowledge and getting out of the comfort zone of financial crime that I was for many years, that's something new. And also around half a year ago, I was stroking my head because my daughter told me in 3 years she plans to have a child. So you will be a grandmother. And she asked me, what kind of grandmother you are going to be? She asked me with such a fear, and I thought, I will be the best grandmother in the world. I have 3 years to get prepared, for how is it with plans in life, but that's something ahead of me, to be a little bit different Anna that I used to be all my life. I'm a grandmother. Let's see. Fingers crossed, I may be coming to you for some hints, but it's a different world that is opening for me. Let's see, maybe fun.
Fantastic, thank you, Anya. And finally, Agnieszka.
So I will refer first to a question that Marta asked, because I love this question, and there is one thing that I'm always very, very careful about. These are the meetings, and I think one thing that we could do as leaders is to really proactively reach out to women in the room. It is scientifically proven that women are not that outspoken normally as an average, and I think there is always, each and every time, if you make a cautious decision to reach out to someone in the corner of a room, you will discover wonders. You will discover diamonds. Sometimes sitting, at the very, very end of a table, and when you really proactively ask, so what do you think? I would really want to hear your opinion. The world would be so different, and I think each and every of us can do this and should do this. It's easy whenever you want to do stuff to only hear those who want to speak up, but it takes, I think, courage, maturity, and also a little bit of self-awareness to really reach out to those who are not normally speaking up. You would be surprised how much change it makes for the whole dynamics of the groups, but also for the people who, as Anya said at the beginning, her story started because someone believed in her. And I think if we really proactively reach out to these women, we just showing this, sisterhood, just really, and it's like, by the way, it's not only about women. I think it is just more common for women not to speak up, but if we really do, we can really discover wonders in people. So this is like what I would do and what I'm doing. Now about my superpower. Well, I don't know if it is a superpower, but one of when I think I also had I think I stopped with 10 who was on my list. Number 2 on my list was Pippi the long stockings. And why is it Pippi? Because Pippi is she is my heroine from my childhood, because she was the one who did what she wanted. And she was this one who was saying, why not? When I think that someone asked her, are you going to beat up strongest man? She said, of course I will. And she said, but this is the strongest man in the world. And she said, but I am the strongest girl in the world. So it was possible for him. And I think I see some features in this. I have this why not approach. We can do this approach. You remember we had like our PwC values. The one that I really love most is reimagine the possible, and I think I'm quite good in seeing things that can happen. I think this book that was like start with why, it's a fundamentally wrong book. It's a wrong title. The subtitle should be start with why not. So I think it is the fact that I can see things that sometimes people feel shy of seeing. It's my superpower. And now what I'm working on, flip side of this one. Because I'm confident that as a group we can do many things. Sometimes I have less tolerance for people who don't see this. I'm really, really bad, for example, with naysayers. Like, but is it going to work? And again, it has taken me ages, and I'm still not there yet. I'm still working on this. To really listen to those who have, who I see as the ones who will standing in between me and the goal. Just saying, oh, is it really going to work? But it's risky. Normally, the old Agnieszka, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, she's like, just here is the goal. Right now, I'm really working on myself to really listen to, not to dampen our enthusiasm, because I think it's still very valuable, but also to listen and take into account those who feel less confident about this. And sometimes, trust me, they have really good points that needs to be taken into account.
Fantastic, thank you, Agnieszka. And please join me in saying a big thank you to all the panelists who have shown inspiring. So thank you, you've been great. And also a big thank you to you, the audience. You've been with us for more than 2 hours, I think. You've been incredibly engaged and incredibly supportive. So thank you so much for coming here in such great numbers, and hopefully we will see you again next year. Wonderful, thank you. And now some coffee for networking, as Tina told us we need.